Happy Monday and welcome back to Makeup and Mental Health Monday. My name is Johnna and every Monday I sit down and do my makeup while I talk about a different aspect of mental health. This week we are going to be talking about standing unapologetically in your power and speaking your truth. Why is that important? What does that look like? And how do we do it? So, I have some good insights to share. All of the products I'm going to be using on my face will be posted in the description below. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, then please do comment them in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe and something about a bell for notifications, please, and thank you. And if you feel so inclined, head on over to Instagram and slide into my DMs, give me a follow, and say what's up over there at Soul Searching and Squats. So, without further ado, we're going to get right into it. Okay. So standing in your truth and standing in your power. What a good topic, right? So I think that to give zero fucks is like the ultimate goal, right? Like it's a really powerful place to be when you just don't care what other people think because you feel so confident about who it is that you are. That is my little dog. He is having sexy time. Like I'm okay. I think he's better now. Alright, so as I was saying, standing in your truth and knowing who you are and being so confident that you don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks about you or has to say is like a really powerful place to be. And so we're going to talk about what that looks like today. And, you know, how do we do it? Because you see people doing it, and I think that we can probably think of some celebrities. Maybe there's someone in your own life that you can think of that, you know, responds that type of way. And, you know, I think that we have, like, two approaches to that, right? So, or people do, not like we. Like, you're probably one or the other. And one of those approaches is that it makes you uncomfortable AF. You're like, oh my god, this person, I can't believe, like, they're so full of themselves, like, they need to calm down because they are not all that. And then there is the other side, or another point of view, if you will, and, you know, they're like, wow, yes, that is so admirable, I want to be with that level, or on that level of confidence. What, like, goals? Hashtag goals. And I think that Cardi B is actually a really great example of this because you are either like Team Cardi or you are like, wow, that makes me really uncomfortable. You know, like Ben Shapiro, for example. And so I think that that's like a good way of giving you an example of what it means to, and like what it means to really be who you are and to be confident in that, so that you can also kind of be aware of like how others might respond and like just our overall thoughts on it, like as a society. And I think what it means really to like stand in your power is to confidently be whoever it is that you are. And I don't necessarily mean that it's something where you're like loud, obnoxious about it, where you were like all in your face, like telling everyone like your opinions, even when they didn't ask, because I mean, you have a right to speak your truth, I'm not saying, but like, you know, time and a place, bro, like, calm down, like, don't bring your musings and like rants into my life if I'm just over here like, you know, at Starbucks trying to have my coffee in the morning. I'm just kidding, I don't really like Starbucks, so you would not find me there, probably, unless someone else suggested it, but that's beside the point. But you get what I'm saying. There's a difference, and we all have probably witnessed the type of person where you know what they think, even if you never asked or never cared to know, just because, like, they talk about it so much. And I think that that's more common today in social media, just because, you know, we have the opportunity to. Like, it's easy to follow someone and know, like, things that you didn't know, because it's easier to, you know, say these things and be like a keyboard warrior, because it kind of disconnects us in a way. Like, people are harder to hate close up, and it's easy for people to speak their truth and like get in these fights when they're behind a screen. And we're getting off topic here, but that is just to say that whenever you are standing in your truth, there's a way to go about it where, yeah, you're like shouting it from the rooftops and, you know, being proud of who you are in a way where people understand that, but and also they're like in a way that doing it so that you're being like respectful of like others is, I think, the most appealing way to do it for me personally. And so that means, you know, not necessarily revealing all your cards at once, but knowing enough about who you are and where you stand on certain issues that if push comes to shove and if the situation were to arise where you needed to talk about it, like, you know your speaking points and you know why you feel that way, and by God, or whatever you believe in, you are ready to share them. And I think that is what the ultimate, like, standing in your power and speaking your truth means for me. And when it comes to, you know, knowing your stance on things, also recognizing that you might not always know everything, and being confident enough in where you are and who you are to be open-minded to listen to others. And I think that that is a great example of speaking your truth and standing in your power, because when you are so confident in who you are, it doesn't really matter what this other person says, because you are going to still be you, and you recognize that, hey, I can listen to these other opinions, these other points of view, other perspectives, or what the fuck you want to call them, because, you know, knowledge is power, and maybe they will share something that you hadn't considered, and maybe you will share something that they hadn't considered. You know, that's how we grow. And whenever you are really confident in who you are, you're open to that, because you know that, hey, what this person says isn't going to make me any less of who I am, because you're really confident in who that is, and you're just getting to know them better and understand them more. So that's a powerful place to be. And I think too that with that, it comes to a point where the more you know, like the more you empathize with others, like the more you can understand their point of view and like see where they're coming from. And there is a true statement behind the fact that we are so attached to these labels that are, you know, created in like out in our society, and whatever the generalizations of the boxes that need to be checked in order for you to fit that label are, we ascribe to those. And I think that people who don't have a strong sense of who they are and a strong sense of self are more inclined to hold so like steadfast to these labels, because like they don't know who they are, and the fear of their identity being threatened is fucking scary. So instead of being open to having these conversations, they will then, I've clearly like I've forgotten an important thing that I need for this. Yeah, so BRB, literally an RB. So as I was saying, people ascribe to labels, and whatever the characteristics are of that particular label, we just sort of adopt them to be our identity. And the people who don't have a really strong and solid sense of self are the ones that hold so tight and so steadfast to those labels, and those are the ones that feel so threatened whenever you offer up any perspective that may or may not challenge that. And the reason is because they see that as a threat to their identity and like who they are. So you're really like rocking the boat, right? You're like telling them like, oh, this thing that you are, you're not, because like this other thing is true. And so like they don't want to hear any part of it, because if that is true in their eyes, then who the fuck are they? You know? And that's like a scary thing, to like not know who you are. So that's why it is so important to have an understanding of who you are, so that you won't be having these feelings of like anxiety and like anger and frustration whenever someone presents you with a point of view that might not necessarily be in alignment with what you think. I don't know what I've done. We're just gonna use this. Okay, so anyway, that is that. That is my opinion and view on why it is so important to have, you know, an idea of who you are and like your sense of self and like all those things, because like it matters and it resonates into like it ripples into different areas of your life. And so yeah, it's a matter of being clear, knowing who you are, knowing where you stand, but also we're bottom lining it, also being open to the fact that, hey, like, you don't know everything. And whenever you are listening to that opposite or opposing or alternate, whatever you want to call it, the different perspective, if you will, then you are either A, going to be that much more confident in whatever it is that you believe, because you're going to hear what this other person has to say and you're like, yeah, no, that's not it. And here's why I think the other way. Or you're going to be like, hey, you know what? I had not considered that. That's a good point. And you might kind of shift your perspective. And that is A-okay too, because guess what? You are not whatever label you are subscribing to. You are your own GD person. So write that down, tattoo it to your forehead, make it into a mantra, put it on a sticky note to like read every day on your mirror, whatever you need to do. You are not your label. You are your own person. You are not your political affiliation. You are not the, sports team that you follow. You are a person who associates with that political party. You are a person who enjoys that band, whatever the case may be. You are your own person. You are not the labels like liberal or conservative or like whatever. So, with all that being said, how is it that we come to stand in our own truth? Like, once we have a realization of like, oh, you know what? That is true. Like, that is true that there are some things that, are important that I know about myself. And that is not the color that I thought it was going to be. It's important that you know who you are, for all these reasons that I've said, or hell, like maybe some other reasons that you thought of while you were watching this. But when you get to the point where you're like, you know what, shit, it is important that I know who I am, then it's a matter of understanding, like, all right, well, how do I start, like, speaking my truth? How do I start becoming this person who, stands up for what they believe in? You know what? How do I even know? Because no one really tells us. And that's something that I spoke about in like a previous video. I will link that below, how to actually discover who the F you are, because that's nothing that they taught us in school. I mean, at least they didn't teach me that in school. They did, however, teach me how to shoot a rifle, which I had to do in order to graduate from high school, because I use that, in my daily life. I don't actually, but here we are. I still had to learn it. So anyway, how do we go about speaking our truth? And how do we do it unapologetically? And before I get into that, I just want to make a quick note about the whole concept of being unapologetic. Like, I've seen some memes or like some videos where people are like, don't say unapologetic because that assumes that like you should be apologizing for something. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. That, to me, and what I say is not the gospel, but to me, that just assumes that you are present to the fact that other people think that you should apologize for being who you are. I really did not prepare for this. But being present to the fact that other people think that you should apologize for showing up a certain way. I think that is what being unapologetic means, is that like you're not going to do that. You're not going to apologize, but you are aware of the fact that people might think that you might feel like you should. So, how do we give 0 Fs, and how do we do that unapologetically? And first of all, you have to know who you are, right? It is a matter of understanding like who you are and like what's important to you and what your values are. And we spoke about that in a few videos back, like how to identify your values and start to know like what's important. And whenever I say you need to know your values and like stand in your truth, I want to point out also that I'm not talking about compromise, right? Like, healthy compromise is a part of a relationship, a part of give and take. It is a part of building a community. I'm talking about when you are, you know, losing who you are because you're always doing what the other person wants. Like, you are always, like, going to watch the movies that they want to see, or you're always, like, going to the places for dinner that they want to go, and you're not actually doing what you want to do. That is what I'm talking about. I'm, like, not faltering and not apologizing, because you don't want to get in a situation where, I mean, it happens, so, like, no shame if you do, but in a perfect world, or in an ideal case scenario, you don't want to be in a situation where you're always the one who's, like, doing the giving. You're always the one that's like, ugh, okay, fine. Like, we'll go have, you know, chicken pie again, or whatever the case may be. Which, anyone who ever wants to take me out for chicken pie, you may. In fact, please do. Like, I'm so game. Because, fun fact, I really like chicken pie. And I don't eat it very often. But you get what I'm saying. If that were the case, and every time we got together, I was like, hey, let's do chicken pie, then that's not really fair for you. That's not fair for your experience, and that's, you know, faltering in, like, who you are. And what I mean is, like, if I'm the one that's always like, let's do chicken pie, me, you know, not doing that, I think I messed up what I was saying, because I'm over here, I'm distracted by the sparkle. If I always want to have chicken pie, and you one day are like, hey, I don't want to do that today, then it would not be me losing myself. If I were like, hey, no, I don't want to eat whatever it is you want to eat. Like, that's, I'm not talking about, like, compromising. I'm talking about, like, let's make, you know, changes for our dinner plans. Compromise is, like, a very healthy part of relationships, and I highly encourage it. And I've spoken about that before in previous videos as well. What I'm talking about is being who you are in the sense of, like, yeah, I don't really like Thai food, for example, but I'm sure that I'll find something on the menu. Like, I mean, that's speaking your truth. Like, you don't like it, but you're saying, like, hey, I'm willing to, you know, go there and, like, try it out with you. And so that is what I mean whenever I say, I hope this is making sense. That is what I mean whenever I say, like, you know, you don't have to be apologetic in that way. Do stand strong and speak your truth. When it comes to apologizing, I think a lot of us, here we are, now we're back on top. Now we're back on track. I think my brain needs more calories for the day. Also, I'm kind of trying to rush. So, when we are in a situation where it's like, oh, I really don't want to do that thing, but you're like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, which don't say I am so sorry, because you are not that thing. You can apologize for your actions, but you are not sorry. So always write that down on your Post-it and put it somewhere where you read it every second of every day, especially if you're a chronic apologizer. So that, like, do not apologize for stuff like that. Do not apologize for who you are in the sense of, like, oh, well, like, I apologize if I make you uncomfortable, because you are not responsible for how others receive you. Whoops. Pretend like that also didn't happen. You are not responsible for how others receive you. You are only responsible for how you show up. We're all just mirrors, and if someone is receiving you some type of way, honey, then that is because you are triggering something within them that reminds them of a situation that they have not healed themselves. Woo! Write that down. So, there's a lot of writing things down today, apparently, in my world. So, yeah, that is that. And I'm going to do my eyeliner and lipstick, and I'm going to come back, and we are going to wrap this up. The only other things I have to talk about, because we were talking about how to actually stand in your power and speak your truth and do it from an unapologetic sense, and it kind of got meshed, but I'm going to come back after I've all made up and give you some actual, like, tangible, like, takeaways on that. So, BRB, a little bit longer right, so a little bit longer R. Yeah. Woo! Okay, so how do we stand in our power and speak our truth? And how do we do it unapologetic AF? So, with that, first and foremost, I said I was going to come back with tangible action steps. How do you stand in your power and speak your truth? Be yourself. Know who that is. And if you don't, be okay with that and recognize that it is all a process and you are learning who you are. The best advice that I have for learning who you are, if that's something that you're working on, self-discovery, is paying attention to becoming aware of like what feels good. What feels like, yes, like this feels like something that like I'm really into, versus if there's something that you don't really want to do but you're kind of just going along with it because of whatever reason, peer pressure or whatever the case may be. So kind of leaning into your intuition on that, and then also looking at what your values are and what you consider important in your life and where you currently are in terms of how much time you spend doing those things. And so I made a video several weeks ago, actually, which, wow, that's cool, that talked about that and self-discovery. And so I will link that below if you're interested and you want to give that a watch. But yeah, being who you are and, learning who that is, recognizing that is an ever-evolving process, and who you are today might not be who you are tomorrow. And, the perspectives and opinions that we learn about on a regular basis go into helping us shape who we are, whether that be with more conviction for the things we already believe, or whether that be with, a shift to some new things to consider and maybe some new ways of being. And when you are, working on really being steadfast in who you are and standing in your truth, standing in your power, speaking your truth, all of the above, then before making a decision, ask yourself, is this serving my highest good? And, really getting present to and like listening to, like, is this really in my best interest? Is this really good for me? And not like, oh, well, yeah, like it's fine. Like not trying to talk yourself into something that you don't really want to do, but taking a step back, objectively looking at like, hey, these are my values and these are my goals. Is doing this thing going to actually be in alignment with that? Another thing is that you can consider, why are you making the choice that you are? Why is it that you are doing this thing? If you decide like, yeah, like this is in alignment with, what I want to do, why are you doing it? Like, what's your reason? Is it because your friend said to do it? Is it because you think it's what you should be doing? I talked about the toxicity of should, and I always preach about that. I can also link that below. But yeah, why is it that you are making this choice? Because everything's a choice. So why are you making the choices that you are? And is the outcome you hope to experience, or what is the outcome, that you hope to experience versus the outcome that you will likely have if you move forward and make this choice? If you say this thing, if you go to this place or do this event, like whatever the situation is that you're kind of deciding, like, is this me truly being me? Continuing on at a certain job, taking a trip with some friends that are kind of shady, like whatever. You can apply it to anything, but that's just a consideration to have. Those are 3 considerations to have. Is this serving my highest good? Why am I making this choice? And what is the outcome that I want versus what's probably going to happen? Like, if we're being for real. So, those are all considerations whenever you are talking about leaning into speaking your truth and standing in your power. And in terms of doing it unapologetically, if you're kind of fearing, like, oh, well, like, what will people think? Then questions to ask yourself. Number 1, why does it matter? Why does it matter what this person that you're concerned with, their thoughts, whatever they may be, like, why does it fucking matter? Number 2, what can you do about it? Can you explain yourself and hopefully, shed some light on the situation? Or is it a situation where you made a comment, you posted something on the internet, some stranger got pissed and wanted to, like, fight with you, and you just, like, that's probably not worth it, kind of thing? Or is it, like, a family member that, or someone that you've been in contact with for a while and you want to take the time to explain yourself? So, what can you do about this misinterpretation if you do give a shit? Or even if you don't, like, what can you do about it? Because chances are, like I said, we are very confident, and we hold very like steadfast in like who it is that we think that we are, and that like sense of self. And so even if you do try to explain yourself, that person may feel some type of way about that, and it might not even make a difference. And then the last thing, consider what you want to do about it. And that goes into kind of what I was saying, like if it's a stranger like on the internet, like who cares, like do you really want to explain yourself? Or if it's someone that you have like a long-term relationship with, then maybe it is worth taking that time to have a conversation about it and explain yourself. And if you came across some type of way, like this was your intention, right? Because again, like you're not responsible for the way other people receive you, you're responsible for being who you are. And at the same time, if the other person or someone does feel some type of way about it, it is their responsibility to communicate that with you or to deal with it on their own. And if it is a situation where they do bring that conversation to you, then it's up to you, you're in choice on whether or not you want to explain yourself or just be like, oh, fuck it. And I think that is when it comes to, okay, well, like, does this matter? Like, do I want to explain myself to this person? Like, oh shit, did I really not mean to make them feel that way? And that's whenever you get to pick, you get to decide. So that is what I have for you this week. This was a little rushed. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope it was valuable. I hope you enjoyed. And if you are, curious about what we're going to be talking about next week, what I'm going to be talking about to you about next week, I'm going to be talking about why we fear change. What is it that makes us all like, ugh, when we talk about doing something new or, creating new habits? Like, why is that so hard? So that is what I have for you. Again, please comment any questions or concerns or anything that came up below. Share this with your friends. Share it with multiple people if you found it helpful. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. Bye.